What's a situation that most people won't understand until they've been in the same situation themselves? Story 1. Knowing someone who was murdered. Not dead from old age or an illness or killed in an accident, but purposeful murder. It is horrific on every level. I wouldn't wish it on anyone. Makes a lot of issues more personal and less generally political, especially when you add in cultural context for the country it happens in. Story 2. Severe burnout. Like full fugue state mental shutdown. Tried describing it to some folks and they just can't comprehend that level of chronic stress and exhaustion. Watching a movie or taking a day off is not going to help at that point. Story 3. What it's like to be homeless, and how easily one can end up homeless, and how difficult it is to get back on your feet. So many of us are one bad turn of luck away from it, and I think about that a lot. Story 4. Depression. More specifically, major depressive disorder. Many people have experienced some kind of depression in their lives, but when it lasts more than 3 weeks, like 30 years, it's another level that folks can't understand. No, some kind of boot camp will not fix this. Story 5. Chronic pain. A few years ago, I had some health issues after COVID and developed a condition that left me in 24/7 pain for just over 18 months until surgery was, finally, able to fix it. Those 18 months were pure hell. Sure, you can think you know how mentally taxing it would be, but when it actually happens, it is worse than you can imagine. It affects every part of your life. You have to plan around it. You are constantly tired and have no desire to do anything, and just getting through the day is a struggle. I never got suicidal, but I could see how someone with chronic pain could get to that point. My quality of life was very low for over 2 years, including the COVID that hospitalized me the first place, and I have much more sympathy and understanding now for people who deal with chronic pain. Story 6. Poverty. My wife and I had very different upbringings. What she considers poor and what I consider poor are completely different levels of poverty. I am glad she never had to experience that growing up, but a little more understanding on why I am set in my ways on some things would be appreciated. She has explained that for her, the experiences I and my siblings had is so foreign to her that she just can't understand. Story 7. Getting beat up. People who've never been in a real fight, especially guys, all act like if someone came at them swinging they would handle it. They talk about what they would do to anyone who tried to beat them up, how they would react, and they have absolutely zero understanding of the fact that the first punch can debilitate you. Jaws break so easily, and the recovery time is so long. A punch to the throat or solar plexus will incapacitate most people for long enough to get another hit in. Once you're on the ground, it's over. And you just have to hope the other person isn't about to kill you. They think they're going to be a hero in an action movie because they would never just stand still waiting to get punched like the bad guys in those movies do. And they don't understand that acting more like a real fighter than a choreographed punch victim will not save them. They have zero understanding of the fact that if the other guy has a knife, you'll be stabbed before you realize he has a knife, and you're probably going to die. They also don't really understand that if you win a fight, you're just the guy with fewer injuries. That doesn't mean you didn't get hurt, and it doesn't mean you aren't about to get arrested for assault, even if the other guy started it. The only win in a fight is getting away without anybody getting hurt. But these people who've never been hit in anger act like they're going to be badass. Story 8. Getting in a car accident. Everyone seems to think they would take time to assess the situation, react accordingly, cleverly maneuver their vehicle into a safe position, and be fine. Nope, you're driving along. And then 1,000 things happen in a split second, and you are in a crushed-up car, and it's all over before you have a second to make your first thought. This is what scares me about drivers, bikers, and pedestrians flying through traffic in pitch-black winter nights, totally confident they would have all the time in the world to deal with any issues. Story 9. Getting in a car accident. Everyone seems to think they would take time to assess the situation, react accordingly, cleverly maneuver their vehicle into a safe position, and be fine. Nope, you're driving along and then 1,000 things happen in a split second, and you are in a crushed-up car, and it's all over before you have a second to make your first thought. This is what scares me about drivers, bikers, and pedestrians flying through traffic in pitch-black winter nights, totally confident they would have all the time in the world to deal with any issues. Story 10. Growing up with abusive parents and siblings. The people who were supposed to love and protect you are the ones who bully you to no end while you have to keep it a secret. It's the loneliest experience that most people just can't understand. Then you hear, "Get over it, they're still your family" bullshit. I wouldn't go back in time if you paid me. Narcissistic parents shift blames, mocks, criticizes, shame. They break your soul as a child. Story 11. Being a victim of a crime and/or how the criminal justice system actually works, based on your country or state, region. I read police reports all day long, and the sheer volume of people that have no idea what lurks around them or what people go through is staggering. Add to that people believing everything the news or social media says without fact-checking everything. The inability to understand that investigations can sometimes take years. And there are multiple units/departments/policies/procedures that must be followed. I'm all for justice, but correct, proper justice with time and care taken to do things right. P.S. Start paying attention to your prosecutors and judges. They are letting a lot of violent offenders and repeat offenders off with no consequences. Story 12. Being permanently physically and mentally disabled. My son had an anoxic brain injury at 5 months after surviving open heart surgery. Unrelated. He can't walk or talk, is track and vent dependent. I never got to experience the typical kid things, and because he's so involved, I don't have anything left for a second kid. But he can smile, and he cuddles into my chest when I hold him, and he gets mad if you turn his adventure time off LOL. I'd give my life for my son instantly, no question, but the whole experience has really opened my eyes to just how much of the disabled community is hidden, and how families have to band together because insurance for damn sure isn't going to just volunteer information. It's also made me more pro-choice than ever. No one considers their child being born or becoming disabled. Throughout my pregnancy, I did everything right, but I'm so fortunate that my partner stayed with me, that he's been a good father, and that we have a family that supports us. I've heard so many stories about kids like my son being ignored, left in cockroach-infested beds, parents checking out, breaking up, etc. No one wants to think their aunt or neighbor or friend would do that to their child, but it's way more common than you'd like to believe. And I'm not shaming caregiver burnout. That's normal and human. Go take care of yourself, babe. But it's not caregiver burnout if you never cared to begin with. That or some people don't have the support or resources they need. You really do see the heights of human compassion and the depths of human cruelty when you're in this position of vulnerability. It's been a wild ride for sure. Story 13. Panic attack. I used to be in the it's all in your head group until it happened to me. Dozens of terrible panic attacks and trips to the ER later, and I will argue tooth and nail against anyone who says it's mental. It comes out of literally nowhere, entirely randomly. Hell, it hit me while driving so bad I had to pull over because I couldn't feel my arms. Story 14. Being in a car accident and as a bonus sustaining a head injury resulting in you not being the same anymore. I don't know who I was before the accident exactly. I'm not sure whether all my shortcomings were there before or they are there now as a result of said accident. I tend to forget some things/people as soon as they are discussed/happen/I meet them. Some remain clear as daylight though. I can't explain it to people. Story 15. The damned if I do, damned if I don't pathos of bicycle riding. Most cyclists break the law. That's because you can be right and be dead right when obeying the law. In most part of North America, a bicycle is mandated to be on the road with cars, but the consensus of the drivers is, get off the road. Doesn't matter if a cyclist is in the middle of executing a full stop on stop sign, and the weight of thousands of pounds is a lot of persuasion power. The common sense is to break the law, run a stop sign, ride on sidewalk, but cyclists get flack from pedestrians for riding too fast there as opposed to way too slow on the road, and gets the blame when things go wrong. It's too easy to criticize someone's riding style. It's not very easy showing it oneself the right way to ride. I like to say, there's no right way to ride, only wrong ones. Story 16. Chronic fatigue. It's exhausting. I could sleep 3 days straight and I'm still tired. Always tired. I know part of this is my fault, but it's hard. I work a lot, full-time during the day and part-time in the evenings after my kid goes to bed. I sleep 5 hours most days, and I get more sleep on the weekends, but I never feel caught up. I work as hard as I do because of the nature of my career. I have a 2-year-old and he is exhausting. Sometimes it feels like a never-ending marathon where I'll never reach the finish line. I'm happily married, am not financially struggling, and am not depressed, but being tired all the time has just made some habits worse, as I resort to soda in the middle of the night to keep me going. I've slacked on general self-care in terms of skin and hair maintenance, so my face is dried out and my head is long overdue for a new style and dye job. I've had blood tests which are unremarkable, and I eat a fairly normal assortment of food. At the end of the day, I just feel like I've run out of hours. Story 17. Choosing to terminate a pregnancy. If your fetus has a terminal condition, anencephaly trisomy 18, other severe conditions that will kill the baby or have the baby live in pain the entire life while risking the mother's life delivering the child. You simply cannot understand the pain and suffering that a couple goes through to think that a miracle of a child will occur, only to have their dreams smashed into pieces. Now, on top of it all, to have the government and other people judge you and your decisions, all for the health of your wife, and to not introduce a child that will live only a life of pain and suffering. Much to everyone's false beliefs, abortions are not used for contraception, or performed late in the pregnancy. Story 18. I almost didn't comment because this isn't a very common thing to run across. Then I realized that rationale is at the root of what makes it so difficult to relate to. Some of you have probably heard of the troubled teen industry, TTI. In a nutshell, thousands of children are sent against their will to abusive facilities because their parents believe they require behavioral adjustments. These facilities go by varied ideologies: boot camps, behavior modification facilities, wilderness therapy, drug rehab. This is just a cover. Even if you've never done drugs, they'll accept the child under the false pretense they are saving them from future behavior. However, they're all marketed to parents, who are often the root of the family's problem, as a miracle cure which will ensure an obedient outcome. I was tricked into visiting one of these programs by my mother when I was 14. I was far from a bad kid. I was simply an unwanted leftover from a precious marriage who was unloved and made the family scapegoat. The reason I'm responding to the thread's question is that the idea can be so foreign to some that they cannot even wrap their heads around the concept, especially so if they've grown up in a loving environment. I was subjected to physical, mental, and sexual abuse while I was held for 2 years in a warehouse located in an industrial park outside a large metropolis. One of the most evil aspects was, in order for you to advance in the program and hopefully leave it one day, was you were expected to inflict these indignities on the other children. It not only victimizes children, it instills them with a deep shame. It also makes support group participation that much more difficult because your fellow captives are also your abusers. I hope you'll forgive the length of this post. Ironically, the need for a long intro is at the center of what I'm wanting to communicate, though. I could literally explain what the experience was like for 2 weeks straight, and I'd probably only scratch the surface of what it's like to lose all of your rights and freedoms, to be subjected to brainwashing, tortured at the whim of the program's facilitators and other children captives, to live in constant fear all day, every day for years, without hope of escape. I denied it all happened until I was in my 40s. I've learned to be very selective about who I share the topic with because people, without meaning to, can respond in ways which can be triggering. I think this also speaks to the spirit of this thread. How can they be expected to respond if they are likely unaware of what the experience was really like, or might be completely unaware that it's even happening at all in the US today? Thank you for reading. I appreciate these moments when I get to express both the experience and also hopefully spread awareness, ultimately exposing these privatized child prisons for hire. Story 19. Working in a mostly analog business. In this day and age, it's rare to come across a business which is almost entirely run on paper. My dad's general store, our family business, has only in the last 15, 20 years grudgingly taken some aspects of business onto a computer, but not online. Accounts payable, receivable are digital now, but my dad still does a lot of his work on paper first, and it has to be duplicated digitally. We still do almost all of our invoicing on triplicate paper and are mailed or faxed to the client. Order forms are filled out on paper and faxed to the recipient. Inventory is entirely on paper. We have no POS systems, there are no scanners, our cash registers are analog. Incoming stock is checked manually, and we don't have a central database record of what we currently have in stock, though we make paper inventory sheets for expensive items when we change seasons. We still put physical price tags on everything in the store. All of this seems ridiculously old-timey, but older workers will remember when this was just how it was. A lot of young folks will probably have never even seen triplicate paper outside of a period drama. Story 20. All of them. What I've learned throughout life is there are so many more people that just don't understand than ones that do. And the worst of them diminish your thoughts, feelings, and words because you should be able to just get over it. Calm down. Give it to Jesus. Just do it. It being whatever easy thing they can do and don't understand, it's not easy for everyone. And I'm really not talking about only the jerks. Even those that love you. I've had friends apologize to me years later when they felt they didn't love me enough during a certain time in my life because they are experiencing it now, and it's so much harder than they ever imagined. It's hard for so many to empathize, understand until they experience it themselves.